Hello there, welcome back. I've been away for a few weeks. I should be back next week with some more videos. This is just a quickie, which is about Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. So I've just recently seen it. I thought it'd be worth a video. So I'm going to do non-spoiler then spoiler. It seems to be the easiest way to do it. Since it's just a new release film, but it's a film that made a fortune over the weekend, so a lot of people have probably seen it. So a lot of people have opinions about it already, so it just seems the most logical way to do it. So we'll start with a non-spoiler. Now, the Doctor Strange, the original, I really enjoy. I like Doctor Strange as a character. I like the weirdness of the character. The fact he's into strange dimensions, a bit psychedelic, it's a bit weird. Doctor Strange himself was a bit of a weird character because he's not the most sympathetic character. He's just kind of a dick half the time. All that stuff I love. You know, unsympathetic character, weirdness, the stories are weird and hard to follow. So Doctor Strange has never been the top Marvel character because he is one of the more out to the side characters. He's a character that not everyone can really get on board with, which is what I like about him. So the first film came out, it did well, but everyone said it's kind of Iron Man again, which it kind of was, but also was a bit weird at the same time. There were certain story beats that were played down in kind of obvious fashion, but that didn't take away from the fact that it was still a really good introduction to the character. It set up the world, it set up the weirdness of the world, it set up the stakes. It had a very inventive finale. You know, it had some really inventive things throughout it. It was just like it had to follow a certain thing. My feeling is because the material was so weird, they had to have some sort of base everything you hook onto to keep it from spiraling out of control. So they did that. They followed the Iron Man template as an origin just to try and keep all this weirdness in control. So now the film's been done, everyone knows who Doctor Strange is. And then Doctor Strange showed up in the Avengers 3 and 4 and in Spider-Man No Way Home. So now he's a very established character. People know who he is. People know why he's important. He's now sort of an Iron Man area of being kind of in charge of the MCU, really. But like Tony Stark character, he's a bit arrogant, he's a bit full of himself, he has lots of flaws within his character that are worth exploiting. So that's where we find him in this film, and they did this smart thing and they hired Sam Raimi to actually direct it, which is really smart. We need some weird visuals. It's also very smart in a sense that Raimi understands comic book characters. Raimi understands the silliness of them as well as the silliness of the world, but he likes to have the character stuff too. Even though he's a bit more comic booky in the characterizations, he likes it to be a bit broader. And he has basically Raimi, when the comic book cycle started with Batman, he did Darkman, which was came out just after that, and there was a very culty film, but it did well in the box office. It's got a nice reputation as a fun little minor comic book film. Then he did some other films, then he came back and did Spider-Man. Made Spider-Man 1, 2 and 3, and a very well-regarded trilogy. A lot of people have problems with the third one, but the first two are very well respected, especially number 2. Number 2 is, I would say it's the best live-action Spider-Man film. Easily. I mean, a lot of people like No Way Home, but I don't think it's as good as this one. Because it was melodramatic, but it was also very genuine in the characters and genuine in the struggles, and it just worked. Everything about this film worked. But the thing about Raimi is, he's good at all that stuff, but he's also eccentric, which you saw a lot in Spider-Man 3, where he had a lot of plots that he wasn't so keen on, and he went into stuff that was a bit, and very enthusiastic, went into stuff that was a bit odd for the mainstream. That was like a sign that it wasn't all. It was a sign that the people who loved Raimi films, the culty people, it was like, oh, Sam Raimi's still here in these films. But for the mainstream audience, it was like, whoa. Because Raimi likes having his characters make mistakes and being beaten up and having a hard time. And nothing typifies that more as the infamous evil Spider-Man dance where Tobey Maguire is affected by Venom and he does this bizarre dance, which was intended to be funny, but some people did not want to see that in the Spider-Man. It was kind of the evil Superman from Superman 3 as well, where it's like, you can't do that to this character, that's blasphemy. It's like, no, it's just a new way of dealing with the character. But that's what Raimi's got. He's he's got a kind of side to him that's weird and funny. There's a side to him that's a bit more respectful to the characters. And it depends what Raimi you're going to get in a film. Usually you're going to get a bit both. You're going to have a narrative that's a bit messy. Because Raimi, he can follow traditional narratives, but he's actually better off when he doesn't. He's better off when he goes in this weird tangent. And you might get little longeurs in the film where a lot of things don't work. But it means you've also got the peaks are much higher because he's engaged and you actually get some really strange stuff. So that's what brings us to Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, which is a film that is bonkers and a lot of people called it a mess. Well, I say it's a mess in all the best ways. It's a mess in the same ways that Batman Returns is a mess, or Ang Lee Hulk is a mess, or one of those weird films that's just odd. Try to avoid saying strange, obviously. But it's odd in a very good way. I mean, it's not as weird as Hulk. But it is a strange film. It is a film that goes to its own beat. And if you're not into that beat, you're going to be a bit confused by a lot of it. Because it starts off at 100 miles an hour, then flies into different multiverses, and has lots of weird gothic stuff mixed in with weird sci-fi stuff. So sometimes it's a sci-fi movie, and other times it's a gothic horror movie, sometimes it's a magic movie. And there's lots of weird shots that you don't normally see in the MCU. You just don't normally see it. So, I mean, I think it's a case of some people who wanted pure Raimi, pure Evil Dead 2 Raimi, were disappointed because it's not that. But also people who thought that they were going to get just an MCU film and Raimi would be the polite Raimi from the early Spider-Man films. You didn't get that either, because the crazy Raimi did come out in a lot of this film too. So it kind of it's been out. It's well received as an inventive film, but a lot of people are saying it's kind of in the middle or just upper middle of the MCU films because it's not as weird as we're hoping for, you know. And some people they don't like it because it's too scary, it's too strange, and it's hard to avoid saying strange in this film. And it's just odd and it's too weird for us. So it's had a kind of weird pass where it's not been that well received, even though it's actually a very good film. But it's kind of viewed as a kind of, I think it's viewed as a 3-star film or something, but some people just say it never lived up to expectations. And other people just find it too weird. I adored it. I just loved all its weirdness. But also knew it couldn't be Evil Dead 2 again. It just couldn't be that. It would be disappointing if we tried to do that with it too, because one, it doesn't have Bruce Campbell in his lead. But two, it's not Doctor Strange. He tried to do a Doctor Strange film, and Raimi's well known as a big fan of Doctor Strange. So he was obviously making a Doctor Strange film. He's trying to do Doctor Strange because he liked that world. But he wasn't trying to do what he'd done before. He was doing a different version. He was within certain parameters of the MCU, so he had to follow them. But because of what we've seen in the reaction, you can see he didn't follow them in a very conventional way, because he was trying to do a Doctor Strange comic in the big screen. You know, that's what it feels like. It feels like the weird 70s Doctor Strange comics with plot goes all over the place, and it's odd. And you know, that's why the character's fun if you like the character. It's being genuine to the character. It's not as conventionally tied into the narrative as certain other films, certain more traditional films. You know, like some of the more recent Marvel films have been a bit too close to convention. And this one jumped out of being really away from the convention. But I mean, Shang-Li was probably the best of the new ones. And that was a very conventional film, but again, it managed to have some personality mixed in with stuff that Marvel liked in the films. Some of the Eternals was a bit stranger or odder. I liked it, but I can see why people don't like it. It feels like it was a good setup to something else rather than a film on its own. It felt like it was building so much, had to explain so much, and its central narrative had a flaw where you could figure it out way before the film had revealed it, and there was kind of a problem with the film. It was like it wasn't fast enough because the audience was always ahead of it. And Black Widow was like an afterthought, really, film where they made a Black Widow film, and it didn't. I mean, even though I enjoyed it, the action scenes weren't that great. I mean, it's basically a film where you wanted to see the dialogue scenes rather than action scenes. So it's one of those ones. It was a film. It could have gone a bit odder and been a better off for it. So Marvel has hit a point where it kind of started a little bit with Captain Marvel, where it became a kind of case where the directors weren't pushing back against the limitations of the studios as much in a way you would get a lot of in like the Captain America sequels and the Guardians of the Galaxies and the Thor stuff, where and even Ant-Man was a bit more conventional, but it still had a weird eccentric feel to it amidst the kind of what the narrative the Marvel does to try and keep the audience interested. Because Marvel's always try to change it up but keep a base. And recently they've had directors who haven't been pushing against that as much, or been pushing against it in an odd way, and the mix has been a bit off. I mean, the mix has been actually better in the TV shows with Hawkeye and Loki and WandaVision. They're more interesting than some of the films because whoever's in charge of them have been having a bit more push-pull that creates something interesting. And so I mean, basically some of the Marvel films have had a bit of a problem where the director of like Shang-Chi managed to push whatever he wanted to do in fun ways, and they made it a fun movie, where something like Eternals of Black Widow, you feel the director's never had the confidence to really push hard against Marvel in a way the films needed. And Marvel never pushed them in the ways that maybe the narrative needed. It was like one of those things where we were too respectful, or was it vague, or did it just not come together? But I just felt those films were a bit less, or even more enjoyable. But the mix of the studio and the director, an individual director, never quite combined in the right way. This one is like follows on from No Way Home. No Way Home was a massive hit. It was a massive return to form for Marvel. Very enjoyable film. I had problems with it. I was just showing my video, but it's still an enjoyable film. This one I much prefer, but it is kind of weird. It's a weird film. It probably went. If a lot of the Marvel films have gone this way, which is not pushing back against you enough, this one goes the other way, where it's like, yeah, we're going weird. We're going very, very weird in this film, and we're going to do some interesting things. And they probably pushed against the audience a little bit too much, but that's healthy though. I mean, this film will scare a lot of kids because there's lots of stuff that would scare kids, and it's very enjoyable, and it's very Sam Raimi-ish, but he's not doing exactly what he's doing in Evil Dead. He knows what audience he's aiming at, but he's also being eccentric and odd, which is wonderful because it is like tempting over a Marvel film and making it his own thing. But it's like people wanted it to be something even more extreme than it actually was ever going to be. But then again, what you get is something really wonderful. So I'm going to go into the point now where it's sort of going to spoilers, really. But I'll end with this section saying, go watch it. It's worth a shot to see if you like it or not. I can't guarantee you'll like it, but it's one of those films you're going to like it. You're going to really be into it, or you're going to be like, I don't quite get what this mix was. It's like, I don't think there's a kind of reaction. It's just sort of like, either it was what you wanted, or it's, oh, that's exactly what I wanted. It's kind of got that weird edge to it that only kind of weird auteur directors can do. Even when given a studio assignment, they'll still do it, If you look at a Brian De Palma film, even if he's doing something like Untouchables, or Scarface, or Carrie, which is a studio assignment film, or Mission Impossible, there's still a lot of Brian De Palma in there. You can't really miss it. Just same with this. There's still a lot of Sam Raimi in here that you can't miss. You can't you can't blandicize him out completely. He's going to be lots of weird stuff. And Marvel They gave him a lot of rope because they actually wanted to see what he was going to do with this, and they realised Doctor Strange needed a weird auteur to really push it forward and make it to get to the second story, because he needed somebody who would take it in a different direction. So that's what they did. So we're into spoiler territory. So that's your warnings up. We're going to talk spoilers now. One of the things that's really enjoyable about the film is that it takes place in a comic book world. It's not trying to be real. It takes place in a world where there's alternative universes, and all of them have a kind of comic booky feel to them. All of them are like big fantasy imaginations, based on imagination that grew up at a certain age. So a lot of the alternative worlds feels very 50s and retro. It's almost like this is the kind of stuff that Raimi imagined when he was a kid. This is his idea of science fiction when he was a kid. That's what it feels like. That's what makes it feel very personal. So you go to different worlds, they do have a 50s influence, 50s, 60s influence to them. That's just beautifully done. So this is almost a nostalgic look at a world that probably influenced Raimi when he was growing up, that was based in a world that was done by the earlier generation. And it's that kind of weird older person feel to it, an older person's imagination, given all the tools to work with. Which makes it very unique, because one of the problems with Marvel recently has been some of the imagination shown. It's taking place from what we want from now, and now isn't the most imaginative thing. It's all about realism or making something work in the real world. And this thing is just like, no, we're not. We're not doing that. All the worlds are fantastical, all the worlds are fun. And yes, we're going to start the movie with a massive fight between Doctor Strange and a big tentacle monster with one eye. And you know, because it's Raimi, that one eye is going to get damaged horribly. You know, it's basically what the end of Suicide Squad was, but as a throwaway first scene. That's kind of what it is. But maybe there's one or two scenes before that, but that's the first big action set piece. There's a minor action set piece, it's more of a setup, which is Doctor Strange in this having a dream sequence where he's running with this girl who's becomes one of the protagonists, and he ends up killing her. That's the first scene of the film. He tries to kill the person he's meant to protect. And he wakes up dreaming, and he's wondering why is his dream recurring. And then he had to go to the wedding of his ex-love and deal with that. And he does it badly. And then he has to become a superhero. So it all becomes this world of what's Doctor Strange's life like. And what it is it's a panic of all these things going on. Like, he's trying to look normal, but he's in an existential crisis with trying to say, I'm a normal person, I'm protecting the world. But he's actually, this kind of weird setup of jumping from one thing to the other tells you, no, he's not. He's messed up. You know, he's worried about a lot of things. It kind of reminds me of Hammer when he did Raising Cain, where he was jumping from place to place so much, and you give an impression of the weird mindset of the central character, and you understand where they're coming from just by how the narrative is unfolding, rather than always just telling you. That's like the same feeling here. And that's a wonderfully fun set pieces, but these are more normal set pieces compared to where it goes. I mean, the tentacle monster is very Raimi, but it's also fits in with the first big fight in Avengers and Infinity War, where there's a big fight in New York as well. That's basically almost the same streets. So it fits in with that, but it's also, because it's tentacle monster, and it is a bit more eccentric and a bit more pulp science fiction. It feels much more like a cover of a comic book. But it's a nice way to tell you, okay, this is the world we've started with, and then we're going to go a bit odder as we go along. Then the film actually starts to kick up a gear into Crazy Land, where he goes to, he finds this girl who's jumping between dimensions. It turns out his dream is actually real. It's what he's been dreaming. He's dreaming of stuff that has come from other universes. And this has been affecting people who are sensitive to that. Some people who are sensitive to that kind of energy can see that and can be affected by that. And it's very dangerous. So the big twist in it, the big spoiler twist in it, is he visits Wanda, the Scarlet Witch, asking for her help dealing with this, and it turns out she's the villain. She's the person behind it all. She also has been getting those dreams and has been using this dark magic book and then that magic has corrupted her so much. She's obsessed with this idea of a child, or these two children that exist in an alternative world. It's already come up during WandaVision, and now this film suggesting basically like that's where the image came from, was this alternative world. There's already influence of even then in WandaVision, and it becomes this thing of the multiverse has got its hooks into her very badly, and by the time we've gotten to her, Doctor Strange went to visit her like months too late. He never visited her after the whole incident in WandaVision, when he should have, but he didn't do it because he screwed up. And then by the time he visits her to ask for help, because he's too busy and too up himself, it's way too late. She's already well gone. And it's basically those two fighting through universities after that. And her chasing down this girl who's got a power she wants, because it means she can go through universities and keep on finding happiness with these children, even though she's already kind of hurt herself so badly. And she's really go really way too far. It's a really good place to take it. The idea of one of characters gone bad. And it takes almost to the end for them to realise how far gone they've actually gone. And the big point of the film is that Doctor Strange always thinks that he has to cure everything. And the whole point in this film is, no, she has to cure herself. He has to help her cure herself, but she has to do it herself. Has to see her or what she's done. She has to figure that out. And the whole film is about him trying to get to that point and realising it's not him. It's not about him. But he's on the run from her for most of the film, and there's a terrific sequence which is so bad. She's got in as she attacks the big all the people who have the magic powers all come to this one place in Tibet, not Tibet. It's basically Tibet, but I'm not going to admit it's Tibet. Because China. And she just comes in and destroys them and wipes them out. And so her heroes brutally killed most of the other heroes in the first third of the film, which means it feels very Raimi. You know he's involved because that's the kind of thing he'll do in a film. Like he'll have characters make mistakes. He'll have characters behave really selfishly and be deluded. I mean, this is a guy who, if you remember the James Franco subplot in Spider-Man films, a guy who's very deluded himself. It's very much in Sam Raimi wheelhouse. I mean, Ash is famously deluded about how competent he is. You know, it's a very Sam Raimi thing. That's why the film's so enjoyable. It's very much like a Sam Raimi film within these other things. So even when you've got the kind of Marvel special effects, extravaganza stuff, there's lots of weird jump scares and weird images that it's very Raimi. And the actual emotional beats feel very Raimi. Like they've let him do a lot. They've let him put his fingers through a lot of everything to create something that does feel like as a director wants to make this film, even though he's doing a studio film. So I don't get why people say it's a work for hire. It doesn't feel that way to me. It feels like, yeah, he's been given a job that's within this bigger narrative, but within what he's got, he makes it personal to him. He does stuff that repeats through his films. You know, just the ideas of deluded people and people, former friends attacking you. Because, I mean, that's very Evil Dead. Like, oh, you're a friend, and suddenly, switch. There's nothing more Evil Dead than that. You know, I mean, the Elizabeth Olsen's have a lot of fun playing Wanda in this one, because she gets to be evil, but also sympathetic in a way you can see she's been deluded and how sick she's gotten. But she can also do power moves and kill lots of people and be the Terminator for a while, and she gets to do a lot. I mean, she's the best thing in the film, and it's almost like, yeah, they're giving her the film, really. It's almost like Cumberbatch knows, like, I'm the central character, but it's really a Raimi film, and she's the best part, and that's fine. He's pretty game for where he fits in this world. And so it is a bit her and her problems. And then as they go through the universe, they go through these different universes very quickly. You see these weird animated universes and things, and it's one of those things you have to do pause buttons when you're rewatching it. It's one of those films that when I left, I saw it with my cousin, and both of us said that we'd love to just go back and watch it again because it's so much fun. There's so many visual things that are there that you just want to see again. So that's something that's got. It's like every time you go somewhere new, you want to just pause the film and see all the weird details because there's tons of them. And there's lots of little subtle character stuff, like some of his flaws. Strange trying to work out some of his flaws. Things that are not meant to be. Like the continuous romance from the first film, and it's almost like this a romance that's never going to be, and he has to accept it in a way that Wanda won't. Basically, she's become sick with this book that's really affected her mind. And the whole point in WandaVision, this is like, after the Ultron thing, and then the Thanos thing, people just left her alone and never checked up on her. Never said, okay, she seems damaged, let's go see how she's doing. No one ever did that. It's like, this is what happens when you leave someone alone who's having problems. The problems are going to get worse. You know. And then they're going to become out of control. Because this is like, yeah, she didn't really have that many good friends, ultimately. And it's kind of something Strange had to deal with, the fact that he is so hands-off that he could have solved this months before it even happened. And he never bothered his arse. There you go. But there are some wonderful stuff in the spoiler section. You've got, like, you go into a universe where there's Illuminati in control, so you get Professor X, played by Patrick Stewart, in there, so you get the X-Men crossover that people wanted. You Black Bolt, you get Captain America, or Captain Britain, who's Peggy from the Captain America films. And you've also got John Krasinski as Reed Richards, the Mr. Fantastic. Which is about a casting everyone wants to see. It's one of those things like, he should play that character. And then you see him in the character and it's like, wow, he really should play that character. And it's like, there's no way they're going to tease that and not bring him into the main story as part of Fantastic Four. Because as soon as you see him, it's like, oh yeah, he's perfect. You don't need him. That's perfect casting. So, Krasinski was actually up for Captain America years ago and he didn't get it. But now this seems like his perfect part. And it's a great sequence because it's a return to world which means they can kill everybody. And Raimi kills everybody in this universe. And he is pretty brutal about the whole thing. And there's lots of... There's actually a sequence where they're going through doors and closing doors behind them to escape Wanda, which is very reminiscent of Someone in Crime Wave, which is a Raimi film from the early 80s, his Mega Bomb. We did that gag with doors. And it's like, and I watched that last week. And it's like, that's the same joke he did in Crime Wave. You know. So if he finds someone he likes, he'll keep doing it. And that whole section is wonderful because Strange is pretty much getting told how useless he actually was in this universe and how much of a mess he was, and it teaches him how to actually realise how people see him rather than how he sees himself. So even though there's a narrative thing with him learning that he's not perfect, he can't do everything himself, it is there, it's quietly there, but it's not like forced on you as something that's every scene has to have this. It's just like, it's something that develops over time and it's just him figuring it out. Because this film, a lot of stuff happens, but they're not going to bash it over the head with tons and tons of scenes. It's like, you bash it over the head visually with lots of gags and things, because it's a comic book film and you have to say things as if they should have an exclamation mark at the end of any sentence. Like, Raimi understands that. He understands that kids should be a bit odd. The kids that she's imagined should be a bit odd. That everything's a bit overblown, the camera's a bit overblown. That's what makes it wonderful. So, that's why the film really works. And then we get to the final third when it goes pure Raimi country. Where pretty much they just let him off the leash to just do whatever the hell he wants. So it's a section where you've got a zombie Doctor Strange being possessed by the real Doctor Strange in another universe, trying to save the girl from Wanda and trying to convince Wanda that she has to stop this, do all this stuff, and it becomes a point where she's so powerful it could be dangerous to everybody. which is why so much I checked up on months before this film happened. And and it really is the character America Chavez, who's like the person who can jump through universes. She's the one who has to make her confront her failures rather than Strange. So basically, Strange does all the magic stuff, but then he has to let other people actually solve the problem for him. And there's some wonderful stuff where he has to fight against an evil version of himself who's been possessed and destroyed his own universe. So it shows you how bad his character can get if he's not checked. And it's almost like Strange is a very important wizard in all these universes, but he could easily be a villain if left alone. So it's something he has to be very aware of. And that's what makes the film work. You've got these ideas, and then you've got this stuff about people possessing other people in different universes. Yeah, this is a film with multiple demonic possessions going on in it. Again, because it's Raimi, it's done for gags a lot of the time. And yet, the zombie Doctor Strange saves the day and has dialogue. Which is, I think it's one of the things that people thought were a bit funny and a bit odd. I'm like, it's a Sam Raimi film. It's like, this is nothing. And yes, Bruce Campbell turns up for a funny cameo as well. But yeah, this is a very imaginative film. It's definitely worth your time. I think it's one of those films that people, for the first scene, I think people first seen it might have expected something different. They might have expected a pure Evil Dead 2 thing. And again, something else, multiple dimensions. It's a bit more sci-fi than people expected. But I think if I go back to it in a few months, once I've figured out what it is, I think I'll probably enjoy it a lot more. Because there is a lot more to it than initially appears. There is a nice melodrama below the surface. You know, because I get a lot of Raimi films in the first release, people say, yeah, they're well made, but not quite what I want. And then over time, their merits become much more important. And because I remember when Evil Dead 2 came out, a lot of people did. Some people loved it, but a lot of people weren't that keen on it. It was a bit weird, and I remember showing to people and just walking away, going, I don't get this. It's like it's a Raimi thing. He's such a weird director. Strengths and weaknesses are all over the place. He's not a traditional structured director. He's kind of like Tim Burton away when you let Tim Burton go loose and hoping it comes together. You're never quite sure how it's going to come together with Raimi either, and it's like, well, we'll see how it goes. But that's one very enjoyable. It's much stronger than Oz, which was his last film before this. I'm glad he got this one done, because Oz was one of those weird films that there's lots of nice bits in it, but it had its problems. This one's stronger. It's in better sequences. It's much funnier stuff. There's magic tricks with musical notes and things that are pure Raimi. There's hands coming through water that used to be glass. There's just lots of fun stuff in this one. Lots of imaginative stuff. It's good that it's a hit, so that it means we'll hopefully get more Raimi films, more weirder films. And I'm kind of hoping they bring him back for 3 and let him really go loose and do something even more insane. But then again, you're also hoping he gets a decent budget to do his own thing. So it's like, I'm hoping this allows us to see a few more films from him in the near future. Because that's always good to see, because he's really interesting. He's one of those directors that's so eccentric that it's like, even his weirder, weaker films, there's always something there. You know, even when he goes wayward. I mean, Spider-Man 3 went wayward, and it's been like 15 years, and people still talk about it a lot, which tells you how it went wayward in a really fascinating direction, that people just get on it, but it's like, you're still talking about it. This one really got you under your skin. It's more interesting than a lot of films you see and forget. That's what Raimi does. That's why he's so good. So even when he goes wrong, he goes right in a really odd way. So that's enough talking for me. I hope I've explained why I thought this film was really terrific and very inventive. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll be back soon with more videos. But that's me for now. Bye.